Hi Year 6 students, I am back to share with you the summary of our lessons in week 9. So we continue our lesson about energy transfer in a food chain or a food web. So in this particular page, 102, we practice your pattern seeking skills by interpreting the diagram that you can see. Here is an example of a food chain. Please take note that a food chain and a food web represent two things. One is about the feeding relationship of living things, and second, the energy transfer in the environment. So here we focused on energy transfer. We practiced your pattern seeking skills by interpreting the food chain on page 102. Okay, when I ask you to do this, I reminded you that when you are looking for patterns, you have to look at the variables or the language or keywords that are used in the diagram. For example, in the diagram shown on page 102, you notice that at each link, when I say link, I refer to the arrow in the food chain. So if you look at the link, the arrow is pointing towards the consumers. Okay, so if you notice at each link there is an energy transfer. And when energy transfer takes place, some of the energy are lost from the food chain. Okay, so please take note that in this diagram as well, the producer is always the plant because it is the only living thing that can make its own food. The rest of them, the animals, are all consumers. So consumer can either be an herbivore, an omnivore, or a carnivore. So in this food chain, grasshopper is an herbivore because it eats bean plant. Okay, so when I ask you to look for pattern, you need to look at the common keywords that are used and how it moves in the chain. You notice there's an energy transfer and also energy lost. So when you explain it for pattern seeking activity, you need to explain your idea by using the keywords used in the diagram. So take note for this lesson, not all the energy in the food a consumer eats is passed on to the next link in the food chain. Okay? Some of the energy is used by the herbivore to stay alive. It means the bean plant also needs energy to be alive. Some energy will be stored in the herbivores. Of course, even if the grasshopper eats the bean plant, some of the energy will be stored to the bean plant as well. Some energy will be transferred to the surrounding as heat. As I said, when a living thing eats another living thing, it gets the energy, but some of the energy are transformed into different forms of energy, and some of the energy is transferred to the surrounding in the form of heat energy. So don't forget that. Moving forward, for our next activity or lesson, we also studied about harmful substances in food chains and food webs. So in this lesson, we practiced your research skills. Okay, how did we practice your research skills? We unpacked the keywords harmful substances. We identified the keywords as well, and we used the question prompts what, why, and how. Okay, so in this particular lesson, we unpacked the concept of harmful substances. We learned that harmful substances are substances that can actually risk the environment or the living things in the environment, meaning something bad in the environment. We also learned a few keywords such as accumulate, environment, microplastics, pesticides, and toxic. Okay, so in the first paragraph of this lesson, we defined or explained what environment means, what toxic means, and what microplastics mean. Okay, so in this particular paragraph, we actually answered the question what? What are harmful substances? What is an environment? What is toxic? And what are microplastics? In the second paragraph, we analyze the second paragraph to answer the questions who harm the environment. So if you notice, here it says that people put harmful substances in the environment. So generally, it's the people who harm the environment by using so many toxic materials. Okay, an example given here is the farmer that uses pesticides or chemicals to get rid of the pests. In the third paragraph, we answered the question how people harm the environment. So as I said, here we studied about how the farmer sprays the insecticide or pesticide, and then in the drawing or in the image below, you can see how the pesticide is being taken by the snails, the birds, and the wild cat in the food chain. Of course, when the pesticide is sprayed into the corn and then the snails eat the leaves of the corn, the snail can also get a portion of the pesticide. They don't die because it's only a little bit that their body system can still break them down. But there are times that when the pesticide is too much, they also get poisoned and they will die as well. So in this page, we further studied the diagram here of a food chain. Again, here we practice our pattern seeking skill, whereby we study how the units of pesticide increases or accumulates. Okay, please take note of the term accumulates. We interpret the pattern here by understanding how the units of pesticide accumulate in the food chain from the first consumer to the last consumer. So if you notice, from 5 units of pesticide, it increases to 15 to 30, and then at the last, pesticide makes eagle's eggshells weak and crack. Okay, so yes, it has an effect to the eggshells of the eagle. So that's how you interpret or you search for the pattern in the food chain. We also test your understanding of food chains and food webs by answering workbook exercises. So in this page, we identify 3 food chains in a food web. Okay, so if you notice, from fish egg to jellyfish to sea turtle, that's one example of food chain in a food web. You also have algae, small fish, great white shark, plant plankton, jellyfish, sea turtle, great white shark. So please remember, when you are writing or drawing a food chain, you need to make sure that you add the link, which is the arrow, because that represents the energy transfer and also feeding relationship. We also identified the producers, the consumers, such as the herbivores, omnivores, and carnivores. Again, herbivores are consumers that eat only plants. Omnivores are consumers that eat both plant and meat. Carnivores are consumers that eat only meat. So, yes. So if you notice in these workbook exercises, so many scientific inquiry skills are also tested. So please take note of that. So here also, from research, you are able to, you are asked to draw out or identify different food chains. All right. So on page 55 to 57, we practiced your identifying skills. Here we identify or define the meaning of toxic, accumulate, pesticides, environment, and mercury. And here we check our understanding of harmful substances. Okay, so it says here harmful substances can damage living things in food chains. That is true. And some harmful substances in a food chain break down into the bodies of the living things. Please take note of that. Okay, so here's another practice to find patterns or pattern to develop your pattern seeking skill. So here we uh, study how the chemical substances or harmful chemical substances accumulate from the pondweed to the heron. Again, so this is accumulation of harmful substances, which is called chemical X. We ended up our week by practicing your research skills using the topic human activities that cause harm in the environment. So in this activity, you remember we had learning stations where you were grouped into three and you researched about deforestation, acid rain, and also air pollution. So again, I reminded you many times, when you read text, book, watch video, or surf information in the internet, these are all form of research. So you are practicing your research skills when you do all these activities. So here, when we read the textbook, we are developing your research skills, but that is not enough. Remember, when you respond to questions, uh, you have to support your response or answers from the facts or informations that you read from the book. Okay, so here when I looked into your responses in Schoology, as I mentioned, you need to develop your research skills by supporting your answer or responses with factual information from the book that you read. So remember, in this activity, I asked you to identify cause and effect relationship. Okay, what are the causes? What are the human activities? The human activities are basically the cause, okay, that actually impact harmful uh, or impact harm in the environment. So, for example, cause deforestation, okay, because of human activities. The effect, the negative effect, of course, making soil poor. Sometimes it is associated also with flooding because there are no trees that can absorb the water. Of course, it accumulates a lot of pollutants in the air because there are no trees that can absorb carbon dioxide to make food. So these are, and then later on it causes global warming. So you see, all the answers that I have mentioned are taken from this page. Okay, so we also talk about air pollution. Remember, if the cause is air pollution, the effect in the environment are the following. Okay, what are the effect of air pollution in the environment? It causes pollutants to actually harm the living things. People get sick, even animals also get sick. Why? Because the air pollution actually brings poisonous substances from the air. So some causes of air pollution are, accumulation of carbon monoxide, and also burning of coals. These are causes of air pollution. Cause of air pollution. Okay, and then the effect is having people who are polluted, people who are sick, like bronchitis and asthma. Okay, and furthermore, we talk about acid rain as well. So cause, human activities again, cause acid rain. What is the effect? If you notice, uh, the water in the lake and into the different forms of water, the water turns into acid. It becomes acidic, that also harms the living things in the water, like fish and other plants that live in the water. So remember, I am not going in detail on the facts and information, but just remember, when you are practicing your research skills, don't just respond to the questions using your own opinion because it has to be based on factual information. That's all.